So I bet you're reading the title of this thumbnail and thinking to himself, "Oh boy, someone who's about to just hate on the Odyssey, like the one person out of the million out here that's actually gonna hate on it." I never said I'd hate on it. I'm just saying I'm not a Christopher Nolan fan. Hello everyone, my name is Jake from Talk Too Much, and today I just got back after seeing the Odyssey, a 3-hour long traveling atmosphere. What other words could I throw to describe this movie? Christopher Nolan's long-awaited movie since Oppenheimer. And to give you a brief rundown of my history with Nolan is I have not really... I wouldn't put the word struggle, but I've never been on board as crazy with the man, and just not the biggest, I guess, glazer when it comes to his movies. Do I think that he has some great, fantastic work in his catalogs? Yes, and I do plan to release a Nolan rankings video soon, so stay tuned for that, where I'll be going in more depth with that. But just, I never was that kind of guy where I was a day one stan. In fact, I would actually go as far as to say some of his movies just got kind of tiring for me. I felt like it was the same rinse, repeat filter over and over and over again. The script just kind of felt like it was always the same every single time. So when I hear that Nolan is releasing a new project called The Odyssey, I was a little intrigued. I was like, this man's actually standing outside of his comfort zone. He's not doing something with the same gray, black, and blue filter that I've seen of 6 of his million movies that he has. So I was actually willing to give a chance with this one and had more of a higher expectation with this. So if you don't know, I mean, because I can't even remember saying my life, the Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, is an adaptation of the book. Now, if you're like me and you're in your 20s or maybe even a little bit younger, and of course if you're absolutely older, you remember going through school, reading the Odyssey in class. Going into the Odyssey, I felt pretty optimistic. The number one thing I kept hearing over and over again were the constant complaints about the cast, the constant complaints about who's playing who, oh, this character shouldn't be this character, yeah, all that stuff. For me, couldn't care for it whatsoever. I wanted a good movie. You give me a lot of big stars that have to be a part of this project. Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, John Bernthal, the names go on, Mia Goth, Robert Pattinson. Again, the names go on. So, as the cast was actually being announced, I was more intrigued with the project and kind of like, okay, my expectation is like in the middle, but it's kind of high. And of course, after the screenings, which this had no early screenings whatsoever, the earliest you could have gone and see it was Thursday, July 16th. I can at least appreciate the confidence that Nolan has in this film that it's going to do well. He doesn't need influencers and he doesn't need other people to praise and just glorify his movie as much as possible. He wants the audience to do the work for him, not the influencer. And I do have some respect for him in that sake. So the Odyssey, it's an old school tale, old book, but pretty much Odysseus, played by Matt Damon, he's stranded out. He's trying to get his way back to his people in Ithaca. He's trying to get back to his queen, who's played by Anne Hathaway, and his son, who is also played by Tom Holland. And pretty much everybody's wondering, where the hell has Odysseus been? It has been 10 years. Are we going to move on and have a new king of Ithaca? Or do we kind of need to keep waiting for him to come back? And Matt Damon is just struggling, and he is trying to find his way home. I also do find it kind of funny now that I think this is like the 4th film where Matt Damon has had to find his way home. I know there's The Martian and Saving Private Ryan, and now this. There's another one, I can't recall the name off the top of my head, but this is like his 4th time trying to get home. So somebody just keep this man in his house. He doesn't, just stop letting him go places. And so starting out with my positives of the Odyssey, cast was absolutely stellar. Not one single actor, not one single actress stood out like a sore thumb during this movie. Every single performance that was given in here was absolutely amazing. I was so on board. Just seeing some of these stars and seeing them transformed into these characters was absolutely just nothing but incredible. It really added to the movie experience when you had all these big names attached to this film. That's why I was so on board to begin with. I also want to give a special shout out to Tom Holland. Now, I have not seen many Tom Holland features outside of his Spider-Man work, but When people are saying that this is his best performance today, I would say that's even an understatement. The guy is absolutely incredible. He shows that he is more than just Peter Parker in the Spider-Man universe. He is more than that. He shows that he's an actual performer. I have so much respect for him in this movie. Every time he was on screen, he was definitely a highlight to get to, especially with Anne Hathaway, who had the mother-daughter or mother-son relationship. Was absolutely incredible. And so huge shout out to those two. They carried a lot of this movie. Whenever it wasn't focused on Matt Damon, it was focused on them. And they kept the movie going for a 3-hour long runtime, like almost 180 minutes. And they just kept it going and going and going. There was not one single moment with them on screen that was a drag at all. Another shout out I want to give is Robert Pattinson. Man, if you thought you enjoyed seeing him as a hero, get ready to see him as a villain, as a real big old POS. Because, geez, I mean, just watching him this whole time, I'm just like, when is Odyssey is going to come back and just slaughter this man? Because I'm so fed up with him. But if you are an actor and you're transformed into a villainous role, you need to sell it all the way, and that's exactly what Robert Pattinson does, so huge praise on that. So yeah, if you haven't gotten the gist by now, every single performer, every single star in there, I know I named a few, but there's so many names that come along with the Odyssey. Everyone did an amazing job. They took the script, they understood what the assignment was, and they did an A+ on that, and I have nothing but love for that. Another positive I'll give is the set pieces and just every single scene, the way it looks was incredible for me. I loved being transformed into this world. To my understanding, Nolan absolutely despises CGI. He uses it as very little as possible, and it shows in this movie, from all the craftsmanship to the boats to the land to all the creatures that we see with the Cyclops. Absolutely just insane. And I can't help but give credit for him for that. And here's going to be my last positive, and I don't know if it might just be me because I'm not as big of a Nolan fan as other people are. It's so refreshing to see Nolan do a film that not only changes the filter that he's so comfortable using, but also changing the type of story that he always goes for. This guy loved having time as the biggest thing in all of his movies. And the problem is, it's just, I get it. There's a lot you can do with like the future and time and what's reality and all that stuff. You could do a lot with that, and I understand. But with Nolan, I was just, after watching all of his movies, I was so burnt out on that being the theme of all his movies, to the point where going into this, seeing this all nothing but old school work was absolutely incredible, and it enhanced the experience and enhanced my enjoyment for Nolan after finishing this and being like, that is how a director does it. He shows that he is not just a one-trick pony with his themes. He can actually go all the way in and do the job. Starting out with my mixes now. Now, there aren't too many of them because, again, I have a lot of positives to throw at this movie. I guess one of the negatives would be, or one of the mixes would be, is this is a 3-hour runtime of a movie. And there comes a certain point around the 2.5 hour, or no, not 2.5, I'd say about an hour and a half mark to 2 hours, where it does kind of tend to have a little bit of a drag. I tended to get a little bit bored in my seat, and I was kind of like wondering, okay, when is this epilogue supposed to kick in with the Odyssey? Like, I'm kind of ready for it. I'm questioning my enjoyment of this and how long I've been in here for. So that was one little snip I had there. But again, that's just me, a picky person who struggles to sit in for 3-hour long movies. Another mixed thing was, it was very noticeable in the beginning of this movie, but fortunately it shaped its way out by the end. The terms and script in this movie, it can be a little off sometimes because obviously they're not speaking the way that they normally would back in these times. It wasn't a huge gripe for me. The only time it was really a gripe was when I heard Tom Holland referring to his father, Odysseus, as dad. That was kind of just like, and then they later fixed it on, and he started using the terminology of father, mother, and things like that. So again, it shapes its way out. It didn't completely take me out of the experience, and so I do have to say that at least. Another mix is that while I enjoyed Matt Damon and he did a phenomenal job, there was just a lot to pack into this movie, to where sometimes when so many things were going the back and forth between Matt Damon and his present time, and then going back to his flashbacks of all he experienced within the Trojan War, it kind of got a little exhausting, where I was actually starting to prefer the flashbacks more until he got to a certain point about the 2 hour mark where he was kind of like snapping back to reality. I kind of was preferring the flashbacks more than the modern times, because I was just kind of a little bored. And I just kind of was like, okay, let's have this epilogue. Let's have everything all come together. And while I finally can say the epilogue pays off, it pays off huge. And that's another thing, going back to my 3 hour runtime of this movie. It adds a lot. You have to be patient with this movie. You have to understand what the payoff is going to be by the end of this movie. So, with that being said, the hour and a half to 2 hours and 50 minute mark does tend to struggle a little bit, but once it snaps back in and you get to that epilogue, it all comes together full circle and it's a full payoff. So I do have to give it praise for that. On to my negatives, in which I don't have any negatives. Might be shocked there. Again, non-Nolan fan, not having any negatives about a Nolan movie. That's kind of a shock there. But I'm going to say one thing that kind of hurt the experience I had with this movie. And I only hope that people younger than me can get it through their head and kind of understand what the point of these movies are. The point of these movies are to have a full experience front to back. That's what you're supposed to have. If you pull your phone out to send a text for just 10 seconds, you are immediately not only ruining the experience of yourself, but you are ruining it for other people. I had one kid right next to me. I mean, he's maybe 16, 17 years old. Guy could not put down his phone to save his life. And it was just bugging the crap out of me. And only to the point where I was like, by the time we got to the epilogue, I was like, you know what? We're almost at the end of this movie. I can tell. I'm like, I don't want to be that person. I really don't. And I was just trying so hard not to just say, dude, put your phone up. Please stop. It was such an annoying experience. Along with that, another factor is please be mindful of who you're sitting next to. Don't be at the edge of your seat the whole entire time, blocking other people. It's extremely rude. Nobody likes it. The guy on the other side of me was like all the way there. His elbows were literally on his knees watching the movie, which I can understand being on the edge of your seat. That's great. It means you're invested in the movie, and that's awesome. But when you're blocking a certain peripheral of my vision and I can almost clearly see it, like, dude, take a step back. You're still going to get the full viewing of the movie. I can promise you that. So yeah, as for the actual movie itself, I only have positive and mixes. My only negative gripes I have are just with the experience of the movie with myself as a viewer. Certainly, this is something that is worth seeing in theaters. Nobody's exaggerating about this. Don't wait for it to just come out on streaming. You're going to miss so much and just so much enjoyment of the movie just waiting for it to come out on streaming. So I highly encourage you, go check this out in theaters. Let me know what you think down below in your own in the comments. I want to hear it all, and stay tuned because I will have a Nolan ranking soon, especially as a non-Nolan fan. You know that's going to be something big. So like, share. I'll see you guys in the next video.